Welcome, everyone. This is ATBX Around the Block Season 10. I'm your host for this, Nick, and I'm joined by Joush. His actual name is Josh, but we call him Joush because of the legend of Satyria lives on somehow vicariously through our Joush. And shout out to all 10 of you watching at the moment. This is what we normally would call our ATB podcast, but we do it live now, online. It's interactive, it's fun. And Josh, good evening to you, sir.
How are you going, Nick?
I'm doing all right. Better than this team that we follow. Better than the last two results as well. It has to be said. 2-0 losses. We discussed the MacArthur game last week. We did say this Mariners game was going to be an interesting one, and lo and behold, it was an interesting one, but probably of no real surprise to us. And I think before we get into the meat and potatoes of what everyone really wants to talk about, which is the former players and former staff coming out and saying some very choice things about club and management. So I think that's going to be the real talking point. But before we do that, we are going to have to go through the usual housekeeping. A bit of league news. COVID postponements have kicked in. So Perth versus Brisbane was postponed. So that's why I was wondering, I'm like, hang on a second, there was only so many games this weekend. Where did the rest of them go? That is why. And Perth in particular, their season is starting to look sketchy with another forced 2 weeks of isolation. So it's almost like last season all over again for Perth, isn't it?
Yeah, it's looking really rough. I actually feel really bad for them because they had it already when they left Perth, I think, like the isolation. And then this coming in, there's already rumors that Sturridge is going to want to go home, which I saw they kind of mentioned today. That's not happening. He's staying. But yeah, I think tensions are getting a bit high for the Perth players, which is completely understandable because how are you meant to play football with 2 weeks stuck in a hotel room in the middle, let alone coming to into the rest of the season? It's not looking great.
Yeah, it is going to be, interesting one for Perth now, based on the whole situation with the isolation and delays, and there's going to be more travel, and who the hell knows what's going to happen for Perth. But just quickly, shout out to Go Wanderers, holds a heavy heart. And Mr. T says we need to hear from Gombau, elbow cough. I don't think we need to hear from Gumby. That's the last thing we want to hear. But in terms of everything else, I mean, everything is pretty much stock standard. There were some results over the weekend. And as it stands, MacArthur FC lead the table on 13 points, 4 wins, 1 draw, no losses. Still the only team undefeated. Western United second on 12. Melbourne Victory creeping up third on 10 points. Then we've got 9, 8, 5, 5, 5, that being Central Coast, Melbourne City, Newcastle Jets, Sydney FC. We are in 8th place on 5 points. Perth Glory, Wellington, Adelaide, and Brisbane last on 1 point. So not good news for Brisbane. But in saying that, it is looking already interesting, even though we're only, 5 rounds into this A-League season at MacArthur's leading the charge. I mean, they do have a good squad. Milicic looks like he's got something going on there. Are we surprised that they're leading at this point in time?
Look, I am. Their squad is weird. Like, they got some good players. It's really unbalanced. Like, they've got all these big centre backs, and then they've just got all these attacking mids. So they've got De Villa's been out, De Silva. They've got Craig Noon at wing back. They've got Moody Najjar, who was an attacker before, and now he's at wing back as well. Lockie Rose leading the line. And Tommy Orr playing deep in centre mid, apart from on the weekend. If you told me that's how they were going to play before the season, I would have told you you're an idiot. But it's working. Like, the results don't lie. Like, they haven't lost a game. So you got to give them credit when it works.
They're doing well. Western United won 1-0 against Adelaide. Central Coast obviously beat us 2-0. We're going to talk about that shortly. Melbourne Derby was interesting. Melbourne City and Melbourne Victory. Victory were up 1-0. City came back to 2-1. And then there was an equaliser just over the line from D'Agostino, and MacArthur 2-1 again coming from behind as well against Newcastle. They were a man down. That whole situation with the foul and the red card, and should it have been a play on? That was just weird from the referee there. But they got the job done, MacArthur, and I think that's a big win for them. And Sydney FC 2-1 against Wellington. I watched that last night. I thought it was pretty interesting. That game in itself, you could see Sydney creaking a little bit, not the best, but then again, Wellington are out with so many players, they had to put on pretty much half a youth team. So such is the climate at the moment, with players in and out with injury and other bits and pieces. So I guess without further ado, we'll get on to the game. But first off, let's quickly just go through some comments at the moment. WSW Post says, have you read the football exclusive that came out minutes ago? Yes, Josh did link it. We are going to talk about that. We are going to go through that shortly after we discuss the abysmal game, because it's what we do on ATB. And Matthew Bradley, Lederer has told the playing group that he won't listen to outside noise. So that's basically what the article was, but there's a bit more to it. So we'll get into that shortly. Shout out to the 17 watching right now live. And if you have anything to add, please drop your comments in there. And if you're not subscribed to the channel as well, do so on YouTube. It helps us. Don't know if this is going to be a new thing going forward. Josh, seems to be fun, interactive, got people watching live and giving us talking points. It's not a bad thing, I suppose, rather than just doing audio.
No, it's good. And like when the games have been as boring as they are, it's always good to have people dropping comments in. So we've got actually something to talk about, to be honest. So I'm loving it so far. So keep the comments coming. This is really, really good.
Exactly right. And share the stream as well. Get other Wanderers fans watching and giving us their input. And we know other channels as well have been going through the motions more so than what we have, but that's part of their deal. So they can do that wholeheartedly. We just do the one a week, and we're cool with that. But let's get into this now. 2-0 against Central Coast Mariners. There was a lot of not really do or die, but there were do or die sort of like vibes leading into this match, because we lost 2-0. We had a draw the week before, whatever it was. We've only won one game so far. And this team, as we've said, is too good to be drawing and losing matches. And the only change to the lineup was Hamed came in for Petrados. He dropped to the bench. Everyone else was pretty much on par as what we expected. The same back line was in there. We had Mejias in goal, Traore, Reece Williams, Katrumbas, and Aquilina. The midfield was Troisi, Yugarkovic, and Tonus, and Abini and Hamed and Ogawa up front. And the only players that came off the bench were Tass, Nazarene, Russell, and Petrados in that second half. Again, Robert doing his 3-sub FIFA thing, whatever the weird thing is that he does there. But ultimately, we lost this game 2-0. And can we really be shocked?
Not really. Like last week, I remember at the end of the pod, we were kind of doing our predictions as normal, and you could tell none of us, like I predicted a Wanderers win because I can't not, but even I said at the time my heart wasn't in it. Mariners know what to do. They do their jobs well, like they're effective. Josh Nisbet is unreal player, and we're the opposite of that. We're a team that doesn't know what our jobs are. We don't know what we're doing, and so it's no surprise that's the result that happened. Look, I don't think it was our worst game of the season. Like we had some okay moments, but it's like, okay, we're round 5 and we're having some okay moments, not even scoring, not even having good chances, just some okay moments. Look, Mariners were going to find a way through. I think it was inevitable. In the heat, someone was going to crack. We had to create more and we didn't. So honestly, I don't think it was a shock at all. Mariners are bouncing after their result last week against, was it Sydney? Who they played last week?
I think they beat Sydney. They beat Sydney 2-0 the week before, at least, or something like that. So
yeah, I think they were bouncing after their result the week before. And even though the crowd obviously suffered a bit because of COVID and the heat, I think fair credit to Mariners. That's one of those ones I can't say a bad word about them after that result. They were good value for the win, and fair enough.
Well, as we can see stats on screen here, they had 13 shots and 5 on target, and 2 of those went in. We had 15 shots, 3 on target, none of those went in. We had more possession, more passes, pass accuracy, and it's almost a carbon copy of the game against MacArthur the other week. We said all the possession and nothing to show for it, and that's exactly what happened in this match here. And for all the attacking firepower we have in this front line and in this midfield, that is apparently, you've dubbed it the best midfield in the comp. Let me just put that out there. All right,
I stand by. I know that's going to be one of those ones where I've got to delete the tweet because it keeps getting retweeted by people making fun of me. But I stand by that 100%. Individually, they are. Although, where was Rodwell? Do we know? Is it just the same injury?
Yeah, apparently he's got a strain or something. He's out, so that's why he wasn't starting. I think Rodwell is a miss, and Hamed was a miss more so probably against MacArthur the other day. But I mean, in saying that, still, I mean, this is what we've come to expect now: all possession and nothing to show for it. No goals in 2 games. Where are these goals going to come from when nothing is happening moving forward and nothing is getting to Hamed, or Beanie's misfiring? Petrados is having hits from outside the box, or getting blocked on the line. And there were some good moments in that game where arguably we could have scored. Some were saved, some were blocked. But where are goals going to come from us?
It's hard to say, isn't it? And that's the whole problem, isn't it? It's like I can see us not conceding if our defense goes right. We've got, the defense is doing okay, but it's the same thing we said every week. You can copy and paste everything we've said every other week. What are they going to do? Like, Agawa wasn't bad. I thought there were a couple of good moments where he showed, like with his speed, he was able to kind of get behind or make something happen a little bit. But everyone else, they don't know what they're doing. And I just keep thinking back to Robinson saying, like, he literally said to me after that fan forum, he goes, "Oh, I don't tell the attackers what to do. I'm not going to tell Dimi Petratus what to do. I'm going to try and get them to be able to do what they want." They're playing like they aren't told what to do. They're playing like they have not trained together as an attacking group. That's genuinely what they look like. I'm sick of saying it week after week, because the world's longest off season, and now 5 rounds into the season plus 2 FFA Cup games. What? What are they? Oh, what are they doing? I can't handle it.
Shout out to Steve, says football has no credibility. Could be just noise from outside. Could be fake news. Who the hell knows? We are going to talk about it, though. We are going to suss it out there. But as we can see here, the report from the Wanderers website does say it was a very hot Saturday afternoon in Gosford. Just on that, 2 drinks breaks in each half. Was it 2 or 3 drinks breaks in each half?
It was 2 in each half, yeah, every 15 minutes.
Yeah, normally it's like on the half-hour mark or something like that, and then they play it on. That was a bit interesting. I think I heard the commentary team also say something like maybe 2 is too much to break apart. I mean, it was a hot day. It was late afternoon. Sun is still peaking. It's still dropping down. But in any case, but I mean, the best chance we had, as I said, was Petratos, smacking it against Birigidi after he had a nice little run, and instead of going left or right either side, he's gone right down the middle. Like, I mean, I don't know what Divi's thinking. He could have had himself a couple of goals already. It was just one of those games where the Mariners were just comfortable in possession. Urania had so many chances as well. But I did say in our show last week, Nisbet was going to be the danger player, and he was, because the kid was just all over the place, just absolutely killing it in the middle of the pitch there. He's going to be a talent and a star, I reckon, in the next few seasons. But, I mean, there was a counter-attack, ball squared across goal, and Sai Goddard gets himself a tap in, and that's 1-0, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, who's scoring next?
Yeah, like 100%. And it's interesting as a counter-attack with Nisbet running straight through the middle of the field. I lost count of how many times that happened where Mariners could just have someone run straight through, but like our midfield. And as I've said, I think there's a really good midfielders. And there was a bit of a change in the shape I noticed, I think. Not that I watched it back too closely, but Ugarkovic was deeper, and then there was kind of 2-8s like Troisi and Antonis pushing a bit further forward to try and change it up. But Mariners, time and time again, just ran straight through the middle of the field. And that comes down to organization, right? Because if it's down to players' skill and their awareness or whatever only, like, they should be able to stop that. Ugarkovic and Antonis should be players that are comfortable dealing with that kind of stuff. But it's down to, we just don't have that structure set up where we can deal with that. And it was going to come eventually. Yeah.
It's one of those things now where we say to ourselves, okay, if it's that easy to run through this midfield and this defense, what hope do we have when it comes to defending in that case? Because if we've got someone like Reece Williams who's there to defend with all the experience, there's only so much he can do. Katrumbas is there. Maybe there's a case to be made for someone else to come and step in alongside Williams. I'm not saying they're the players at fault here, but like Stephen said, like you've said, it's almost as though Robinson has just not changed the system, just brought better players in and tried to play the exact same system, and it's still not working.
Yeah, no, I agree. I know what you think. I'm getting a bit worried about Williams as well. Not necessarily his defending. He's doing a good job, but he's picking up a lot of yellow cards. He gave a penalty away against the Jets, and he's a good one-on-one defender. We've seen it. We've seen enough of it. So, because look, and I haven't checked the yellow card stats, so I don't have anything to back this up, but I genuinely think at least 3 of the games he's got a yellow card, I think. I remember it at least, including this one. So it goes to show as well how isolated he is, because he is a good one-on-one defender, but if you get someone running at you time and time again, you're going to mess it up. And that's what happened against the Jets a month ago when he gave the penalty away, because the players kept getting at him, and eventually he's going to make that mistake, or they're going to get the wrong side of him and he's going to bring him down. So I think, so that's not me saying Williams is playing badly, because he's probably our best player at this point, but it's more about that, he's getting isolated time and time again, and he's pulled off some amazing challenges. The one in the derby, one a couple of weeks later, some really unreal stops, but he's going to make mistakes, and I think mistakes are creeping in there as well just because of that pressure.
Yeah. Interesting comment here from Laura. Shout out to Laura. She says, if the problem is a lack of directional style of play, how do we explain our failures under every manager other than Popper? Either a bigger issue or perhaps we have to give this playing group. I think there's a bit more to it that doesn't show up on screen here. Playing group. I think there was more to it from Laura there. Here we go. An opportunity to step up. It's only round 5 in both CCM and MacArthur, decent size. FFA Cup game, an anomaly given squad. I don't know if I buy that. We should be more than good enough to beat a NPL team. As good as RPL Leichhardt may be, still, we should not have lost that game. We still had decent players on the pitch, but when you're playing against A-League opposition, players who have played regularly and played consistently, then you're probably thinking, okay, there's a fair chance that we're going to be beat by someone, and in which case we did. But interesting point there. Have we had a style of play apart from Popper's defensive structure? Disciplined, 4-2-3-1 or whatever the system was that we played. You knew what you were going to expect with Popper. And Gombau came in. That was a shambles. Babbel had a decent idea. Didn't work out for him. Robinson. What the hell is with this squad? You're the tactics man on this show. Give us some insight.
It's complicated. I think I think Laura makes a good point, because it's not like we're only failing under Robinson. I think it's because it's not just the squad and it's not just the coach. I think it's the coach knowing how to use the players he's got in the way that he wants to, I think. And that clearly hasn't gelled. I think Gombau, he knew his style of play he wanted. I don't think he had the players for it. I remember we said at the time he had a Popper squad, then Popper left a week before the season, and then he's been left with a squad that's not his. And I think Gombau would have got another chance if he just wasn't grossly unprofessional off the field, but that's another story. I think Babbel, it's hard to say. I think he didn't know how to use his players, is what I think. I think he was expecting players that could do the stuff he wanted them to do, and he just couldn't get them to do. And he spoke out a couple of times about the Australian players struggling with the fact that they weren't fit enough for him. They weren't up to the rigors of the football he wanted to play. And he spoke about, just struggling to get them to do things. So I think Babbel's problem was just not being able to use the players that he had his disposal. Whereas Karl, I think he just doesn't have a clue from what we've seen. That's my personal opinion. I think he does not have a clue about tactics or about what he's doing. And he said as much. I mean, there was that video of him that went viral that was posted by another Wanderers page. And he said basically, they asked him, why can't we score goals? Or what do we have to do to score more goals or create better chances? And he just said, I don't know. And then he said, take more shots. Even though we've taken the second most shots in the league, he has no idea what he's doing. So I think, in terms of what Laura said, I think it's different things under different coaches, and they just haven't been able to, all of them, use the players effectively for whatever reason. And I think we're going to talk about in a minute, obviously, stuff behind the scenes lending itself to that potentially as well. But I think it's an interesting point at the very least. Oh, Nick, I can't hear you if you're talking.
Muted myself. Thank you very much. Background noise. It's all bad habits. Steven says Apia are 0-2 versus the Mariners right now in the 49th minute. So, how good are Apia if the Mariners are beating them right now? You know what I mean? So this is what I'm saying. Like, you can say if it was like a Melbourne Victory team, if they had to change squad, you can say, okay, well, their squad is better than ours. Apia, no disrespect. The whole cup set thing, that cheese, I hate that whole cup set notion. It's just, to me, it's just nonsense. But look, they're leading at the moment, and it is what it is. And 2-0, and the second goal, Bozanic scores a great free kick deep in injury time, and it was game over already. I mean, you're in the 95th, 96th minute. There's nothing happening. Game over, 2-0, and I feel for those traveling fans that went in that hot sun, in that heat. Turner was one of them. Apparently, he was on screen with his hands up, miraculously. Shout out to Turner if you're there. A former ATB member and now Club Shill. Joking there. It says we lost to both these teams. Yes, we did, but you can see Mariners are better than RP at the moment, and Mariners had to come from behind against Wollongong Wolves as well. They were losing 1-0. They had a player sent off, and then they had to equalize, and then they scored. So Mariners decent squad, whereas we're not doing anything. There's nothing that we are doing now. Is almost 25 minutes into the show. I think we should touch on this article that just came out here before we get into feedback, because we do have a lot of feedback to get through. from football or ftbl.com.au, however anyone wants to pronounce it. I was going to bring it up on screen right now. We're going to look at this in real time. I have not read this properly yet. It's big enough for
Nick,
everyone.
do we want to give a bit of background about the last couple of days before? Because I think the article's a response to what's happened in the last few days.
Very good point. We shall do that indeed. Let's move that on here. Let me just pull up the right bit of information here, because it is pretty much key what has been said. A whole lot of tweets have been made and put out there, and by former players such as Rolly Bonavacia, Dean Heffernan, and staff as well, like Patrick Zwanswijk, who was a Mariners player and has become or was, I should say, manager at the or some sort of technical something or other at the club, and he's left now. But this is basically what was said here. There's a few tweets, if we can just pull them up here. I know it's not the best of things, but this one here says, Dean Heffernan, I can tell you, Karl, it's because JT and Gavin Costello have created the most toxic environment I've seen in 20 years of football. Paul Lederer wouldn't be aware of what goes on. How can 60-odd players and 4 coaches over 5 years be wrong? I rejected a 3rd year due to the above. And that was in response to Heffernan Robertson saying the answer is I'm not sure. So I can't really see the context there. But Josh, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, just to clarify, so Heffernan, I think that's about him being W League coach. So he was W League coach for 2 seasons, and then he sort of left, and Catherine Canouli's kind of stepped into the role now. But yeah, this was a shock, and there's the tweets go on. So I'll let you continue, Nick, because just reading through this on Sunday or whenever it came out was really shocking to see.
The next one, he says, replying to a Nick Meredith tweet, for whatever anyone thinks of Nick Meredith, he says, at some point it actually is. It's obviously a shocking culture and environment, but that in no way excuses very well-paid professionals giving very little effort, to which Heffernan responds, this is way off the mark. It's not the players. This has been happening for years now. Most former players that walk in there say something's not right here anymore. It's an energy and you feel it and can smell it from the car park. It slowly seeps into you without even knowing. Those are some descriptive words from Heffernan, man. There's another one here. Patrick Zwanswijk, again, was a Mariners player, ended up being part of the coaching staff, and he left as well. And he said, thank you, Dean. I know 100%. I wasn't the only one, sorry. We're both in the business now because of it. We keep our heads up, but won't be silenced anymore. Truth hurts, but healing at the same time. Catch up soon, Mr. Cronulla. And Dean responds, I was an empty shell in that place. Slow football death over 3 years of coaching. I'm happy in the corporate world now where everyone works together to achieve goals. If you didn't write something, I'm not sure you would have. Thanks, mate. There's more there from Zwanswijk, more back and forths. And he says an interesting one here. He says, Lederer's only mistake is trusting and being blindsided by JT. Now, Mr. Tatsumus, if you are listening to this or watching this now or at a later time, this is just the thoughts of Patrick Zwanswijk. It doesn't really reflect our thoughts, but there is a big contingent
I love the little
out there.
Disclaimer there.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Not ATB. Could be myself. Could be of Josh, but not the whole thing at the moment. And he goes on to say, I was meaning to say that there is a small or medium to large contingent of fans who are not fans of JT, shall we say. He says he loves the club and wants successful WSW. JT and Gavin Costello would start the cleanup and then appoint the head of football who holds every coach and player accountable. And someone questioned what happened to Ugala. And Zwanswijk basically said he quit WSW and went to uni, doesn't trust Gavin and Karl. So his dad didn't want him to play anymore, left his biggest dream behind. And that is absolutely sad. That is terrible. And you can see there Rolly Bonavacia with the eyes, peeking out. So there is a lot to be said there when it comes to the whole uncovering of this toxicity in this club or whatever. And it all seems to stem to JT and Gavin. Interesting. I personally don't know who Gavin is. Josh, do you have any light on that information?
So that's a funny one, right? Because Gavin I've heard of before as being, he's basically I can't remember the term or the exact job position, but essentially the head of football at the club, the head of the football department, like in charge of that side of things, right? And I knew about him, or I knew he existed before now. I've heard just someone I knew who worked at the club talk about him, or not even talk about him, but just say he was a person. So because of that, I wanted more information about him. So at that fan forum we went to at the start of the season, I put in a question just to say, who is the football department? So I didn't mention that was me, but that was me who put that question in, just because I was hoping they'd give a bit more information than just on who this Gavin guy is, who else is actually involved. And that was when, if you remember, Karl, we made fun of this last week. Karl stood up and said, I am the football department. I make all the decisions, everything, whatever. So I remember I sat there, I didn't think anything about it, but I thought that was weird because I was like, well, I know this Gavin fella exists. I know his role at least is there. I don't know if there's anyone else, but I know there's at least someone else. So in terms of what he does think, I couldn't tell you. I honestly couldn't tell you. I only know he exists because his name was mentioned in passing, purely in passing, by someone who worked at the club. And it comes back to there's no transparency about anything, is there? When it comes to who's making footballing decisions, why would they say Karl makes all the decisions? And I know Karl's the kind of guy who he wants to take responsibility for stuff, and he wants to put his head out there and be I'm the one doing everything, it's all me kind of guy. Football operations manager, thank you. The WSW Post has just commented football operations manager. If that's his job role, perfect. So why would they say Karl is in charge when there is other people there? Why are they keeping this hush-hush? Is it because they don't want people to know who's making the decisions? Is it because they don't want there to be accountability for what's going on? And Laura's also said there, so I'm taking your job, Nick, reading all the comments, but it just fits in really well with what I'm saying.
Doing well.
Laura's gone weird because Gavin Costello is very young, as it turns out. She actually thought that he had a similar role to Ben Tropiano. Shout out to Ben. I'm always happy to give a shout out to Ben Tropiano, even though he's working for another A-League club now. But that's interesting because I know nothing about him. I didn't even look him up on LinkedIn or whatever. If anyone wants to do that and comment what his history is, you're welcome to. So basically, Nick, I don't know. And I think it's pretty weird that we don't know, because you'd think that if they said there's someone else making decisions, that takes a bit of heat off the coach, right? That helps. That takes heat off JT. It takes heat off Leder. In fact, it spreads the responsibility around, as it should be, because we all want to know who's making the decisions that affect the club. So I think it's really concerning, to be honest.
It's funny though that this is happening all of a sudden. I mean, a lot of people would have had their assumptions and their guesses. You know, the whole JT out situation and Jeno, what are you doing? And all that sort of stuff. Like, people give shit back and forth and whatever. But when it comes to former players and former staff and players of other A-League clubs who are well known and respected in the league and the game itself, when they're saying things like this, it makes you wonder what has happened along the way. Where has this all gone wrong? And how the hell are we still a team? Use that word loosely, team, when these sort of things are happening behind the scenes. Like, what is going on with the management side of things? We know JT wants to win. We know he's all about success and all that sort of stuff there. But when it's not happening, when it's not coming through, what do you do then? And other former players have spoken out as well. There was this one tweet here, which I think has been deleted, but I've got the image here. Apparently, it was written by a former player who remained silent. We still don't know who it is. I know we tried to do CSI tactics in our group chat when this came out, but the apparent response is, "That's it, brother. Leder, Gavin, and JT make me sick. What they did to me before I left, the way they disregarded me after everything I did for them, showed me that those three pretenders only care about themselves. To this day, I have not once been invited back to the club, and all I can say is they make me sick. I have completely left the game because of those pigs. I'll never forgive them." Now, you can read into that what you like, but that is apparently a quote from a former player. And if they were around for a long time, based on the things that they said, the way they disregarded me after everything I did for them, that to us sort of indicates that it is a big player that probably would have done something. And there was a lot of back and forth as to who it could be. Some reckon it could have been Brendan Santalab. Ante Kovic was put in there. Mark Bridge, which Laura actually brings up. He's Bridge, the only player I could think of. They may have sent that. But he played for Mounties Wanderers once he left us, so I don't know if that's true. This is the thing. I left the game because of those, pigs. Like, once you left Wanderers, was that it? Did you finish playing football, no coaching, nothing at all? Or did you still play part-time? This is what we need to try and work out here. So we don't know what the actual situation is. But if other players are saying these sorts of things now, it just makes you think, okay, who's going to come out and speak out next?
Yeah, it's worrying to see this, and then the comments from Heffernan and Svansvik, because they were the main ones that kind of came out. And one of them was saying, I wouldn't have spoken up unless I'd seen this. whatever else. And look, and okay, I will say, in the spirit of full, both sides and all that, I have heard rumors about, one of the guys that have left the club. Only rumors, completely baseless. I'm not even going to say what they are because it's not, I have no verification, but there, for at least one of those guys, that there is more than one side to some of those stories kind of going on. Fair enough if there is. The club has refused to comment deliberately, which is their right. But it does make you wonder, yeah, because it doesn't matter who sent that quote in, right? If they want to be anonymous, that's completely respect that. But it makes you think, those players that have left the club, we don't see much, like, there doesn't seem to be much to kind of continue the legacy of those players, the players that won the ACL or the players that did stuff. I know, ironically, they did get Heffernan in as W League coach, and now they've got Kath Canuli, so there perhaps there's Laban O'Halidi still at the club as an assistant, which is really, really fantastic. But apart from that, those guys, Centrelab, our greatest ever player in terms of overall achievement over a long length of time, maybe not the best footballer, but the one who contributed maybe the most. We haven't seen or heard from him since he left. Mark Bridge, same. Haven't seen or heard of him. Michael Beecham was in the setup, and the WSW Post has commented that Michael Beecham and Kovic left the same time as Heffernan in the W League setup with little announcement as well. Have to wonder what they have to say. So these guys are either haven't been involved since, and fair enough, they don't have to if they don't want to, but we haven't seen any of them, or the ones that did work at the club have just disappeared, kind of have gone without any announcement, without any fanfare, and it makes you really, really wonder what has gone on. And as Matt Bob Brad comments, and I think he responded to A-League, ATB feedback as well, which is really good, and it's a really important perspective to have. It's not just the men's side. The women's side have only made the semis once, and Coach Heffernan walked out. JT and Lederer can't build successful teams. So we're seeing it all throughout the setup, from youth, from W League, I should retract that, from A-League women's, A-League men's, got to get the naming right. All throughout the club, we're seeing this, where staff, we can't build any continuity. There's no loyalty being shown from them to us, and it's probably because we're not showing any to them. It does make you wonder what is going on behind the scenes, because I feel like Heffernan and Zwanzweig, if they want to work in football, they're not going to go around slagging off their clubs on Twitter unless they mean it. Because we're just like, you and me, Nick, if we quit a job, we're not going to go around slagging our work off because we want to get employed again, particularly in football where there is no jobs. There's 12 professional clubs in this country. If you want to work in one, God, you got to keep your networks up and you got to keep your bridges going.
Yeah.
And for them to come out and say that says a lot to me. It really, really does.
It's only a small knit community when you really think about it in terms of football in this country. If you want to stay in the top leagues, you can't really go around saying this sort of thing. So either they've been absolutely ripped to shreds internally, and now they have an avenue to get it all out there, or maybe they really just don't care anymore and just I'll say whatever the hell I need to say to get this out there because I have no affiliation with them at all whatsoever. WSW Post, Duke has also liked a lot of tweets about Wanderers' toxic culture. That's an interesting point there. It just amazes me how people look into the most minute things, like who likes what and what's commented. I just never understood that at all. But
to be fair, if Duke is liking it though, I think at the moment with what's going on, it shows he agrees with it. Normally, Nick, I think people digging through people's old likes and stuff, I'm not a fan of. But in this context, I think it's relevant. If X plays someone who was the captain of this club as well, let's not forget, that would be pretty disrespectful in any other context. If I had a captain of the club liking tweets of people criticizing or abusing or whatever, I'd be ropeable. But now, not at all. I don't hold anything against Mitch Duke for that, because I think if he feels the same way, he's just as entitled to kind of share. And he would know Heffernan and Zwanzweig because he would have played at Mariners with them as well. So the fact that these guys who know each other are saying this or are kind of doing this, I'm not saying it's just the Mariners club that are saying this, but the fact that they feel comfortable saying it says exactly like what we said. What is everyone else thinking that's not comfortable to say it because they don't have anyone else who kind of shares it?
Yeah, it's weird. Who the hell knows, really? I mean, if anything, we'll just get more information later on in this week, hopefully. JT Letter have settled for mediocrity at this point. Yeah, pretty much, Nicholas. I think, everyone can see that. But now, finally, moving on to the football article written by David Lewis, 8 p.m., just about an hour before we started recording, says Lederer has moved to reassure players he won't be, quote, influenced by outside noise, unquote, in a statement which appears to have brought besieged coach Karl Robinson extra time to save his job. Shaky starts. Lederer went into training on Tuesday, and apparently there was a comment made that the players didn't train when Turner actually confirmed yes they did train, and that's when we said to him, "You're just a shill. You know, you're always going to back the club." As we do, we'd like to give him a bit of a rib, but football, and Stephen said it, and he goes, "Football have no credibility, but we'll take this on face value." He says, or rather, the article says, Lederer's message was that there's no immediate plans to change course, no matter the external pressure exerted to win. By 1 win in 5 games, an increasingly fractious fan base, and 2 former coaches voicing their disquiet over Wanderers' inexorable decline, which is what we went through already just before there. So 2-0 loss against the Mariners, as you said. Lederer didn't respond to football's phone calls, holding fire for now in the hope that coach he headhunted from Newcastle 14 months ago can somehow mold a talented but dysfunctional group of players into a cohesive force. I think that pretty much sums up everything. And just quickly, Mariners are now 4-0 up against RPL Leichhardt.
Oh, it's getting worse for us this week.
Makes it even worse.
It's not been a good week for the Western Sydney Wanderers football club.
Even worse indeed, 100%. So yeah, it just basically goes to point out that there is something going forward there. And as it says there, Tsatsamus and Costello both accused on social media by ex-Wanderers player, former A-League women's coach Dean Heffernan, the most toxic environment I've ever seen in 20 years of football, and Zvansvik as well commented out there as well. So Lederer basically saying nothing's changing. We're not going to listen to anyone from the outside. You're going to kick on it and do what you're doing. But if it's not working, why the hell would you keep doing the same thing? You know, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing, expecting a different result.
Look, it's one where at the moment, look, I don't expect anything because he's hardly just going to go, oh my God, you're right. Because then it just makes him look incompetent. It makes the club look even more incompetent. So at the moment, I think I disregard this. Firstly, the source is questionable at best. And it's kind of like, it's exactly what you'd expect. It's basic kind of crisis management at this point. You stay strong, stay firm. So I wouldn't read anything into this, but we can guarantee, right, this is shocking PR for Wanderers. And they have to do something about it. There would be meetings going on within the club between Lederer, between JT, whoever else. They have to do something to deal with this and do something about it. So I think, I'm not reading too much into this. But what I want to know, and Nick, I'll ask you, because so there were calls I haven't listened to any of these or seen any of these, but I saw Bozza called for an independent review, like of outside people into the club. And then I think Rob Cornthwaite, the A-League Keep Up pod, whatever it's actually called, he called for the same thing. So they're calling for kind of review into the footballing side of the club. Now, we, in theory, were told we had that before Robinson joined a year or two ago. Remember that review into the footballing department? Do you remember if anything came from that at all?
I can't remember anything ever happening out of that. I doubt anything actually did. It's almost like an internal review, like FIFA, like, governing themselves. Yeah, we've had a look into our own books and everything's sweet. No problems at all. It's one of those ones. Of course, they're just going to say, no, everything's fine here. There's nothing to see here. Don't worry about the smoke in the kitchen over there. No, there's no fire here. Just keep going. It's one of those things. Even if they did look in, they're not going to come out and say, actually, yes, we found, a list of things that are problematic or that there are issues here. They're not going to do that, man.
I know. And it goes back to exactly what I said before. There is no transparency and there's no accountability here. And it's the same comments from everyone else as well. Everyone who's commenting on this. Because at the end of the day, for me, right, it's like, look, JT is the CEO. It becomes hard for us to talk about it. Ultimately, he's in charge, right? So all of this is on him. But, it's very hard to discuss the specifics of a job role that we don't know about, right? So whatever happens, I'm not saying I'm, defending him or whatever. I'm just saying it gets complicated and it gets messy, and it's not as simple as just hashtag JT out because he's so ingrained into the club. But what I want to see is accountability and transparency. So if that is accountability onto JT and he has to take responsibility, great, then fantastic. If it's accountability in other ways, whether it's Gav or whoever, Gavin Costello, if he's going, if it's the coach, if it's the footballing department being restructured, director of football, whatever it is, that's what we want to see. We want to see something happen and we want to know that it's happening. We don't want to be told anymore, oh, it's fine. We're doing a review. Oh, yep, everything's all good. No, you just got to trust us. It's fine. We don't want to hear, oh, Karl Robinson's in charge of the footballing department. He's the only one involved. Wait, no, Gavin Costello, him as well. Well, I'm sick of this. We want to know what's going on. And I'm saying this, if JT, if you are listening, I'll say this to you. And again, nothing against you personally, But unless you start telling us what's going on, unless you start doing something about it, this falls on you because we've got no one else to blame. So if you're putting yourself out there as the only person involved, well, you have to take all the responsibility. And again, I don't want that to be the case. I've been calling for a director of football for years. That's what I want. I want the footballing side and the administration side completely separated because there's been good work. There's been really good work from our club off the field, the stadium, the training facilities, the community work, all this stuff. I'll go on it about because I think it's good work and I think it's important. And it shows that some people at the club are switched on and care. And I know for a fact that people at the club are switched on and care because I know some of them or I have known some of them, right? The footballing side is the problem. And so you need to do something about it. You need to fix it. You need to be transparent because otherwise this is on you. And you're going to get more JT outbanners and you're going to get more abuse and you're going to get more articles written about you if you don't tell us what's going on and you don't do something to change it. That's what I got to say to JT if he's listening.
Jay, big call there from Josh, straight to the big dog, back to JT, straight to him. Before we go onto ATB feedback, a couple of things here, just quickly here. Laura's got a question. She says, any news on Rodwell? Interested in thoughts on Troisi. We look better with him at 10, but no idea how we accommodate a player who may not be able to play interstate games. Troisi's situation is a little bit funny, but he has looked good in the last last few games, and Mariners are now 5-0 up. So
I think Troisi would he be jabbed because he. Again, this goes back to the transparency thing. They won't tell us what's going on again, right? And it's like, bloody, just tell us what's happening, right, with the player. Can he play or can't he play?
Yeah, it's too hard.
So for me, that makes me think on the low key, he's gotten his jab. But if he hasn't, then I don't know, because he has been good. We do look better with him as a 10. You're 100% right, Laura.
Yep.
He does make a difference in there. We saw it. FFA Cup, he was really, really good, even though we were woeful. The games he's played in the league, he's been good as well. But I don't know what to tell you. Again, no transparency. Just let us know.
Sorry to hide your face there, Josh. Just a sheer coincidence that you happen to be there under Bob Brad's picture. But he says the club feels like it's impenetrable to fans, but now the media as well. No comments from Regari and other journos by Lederer and JT. It's a small thing, but Townsend actually responds on Twitter. So maybe the journos do have something to say about some things happening within the club. But now on to feedback. Got about 15 or so minutes left to try and stick to the hour mark, so it's nice and easy for everyone. Question was, for those not able to join in tonight, but some of you may be here right now, says, in our short history so far, is this rock bottom for WSW? What needs to happen to fix this mess? And then
Nick, firstly, you let us know what you think. Is this rock bottom?
I don't know if it's rock bottom. I mean, we were last at one point or second last after the ACL win in that, 14-15 season or 13-14, whatever it was. But in saying that, I don't know, if you have a happy club or a club that's run well, but a team that's struggling, do you consider that to be rock bottom, or a team with a decent squad that's not doing great on the field, and also internally within the club, or has been said to be from other people internally, they're not doing things properly? I don't know what's worse, your player performance or the management performance. I don't know. It's pretty bad. I've not heard anything like this from an A-League club apart from Sydney FC when they had Tradavenko in there, whatever his name was, with Frank Farina. Like 10 years ago now, almost, if that's even a similar comparable thing. But I don't know if this is rock bottom or not, but it's definitely not a good thing. You don't want to be in this situation. 100% you don't want to be in this situation. But I think we can start reading off a few of the responses. Latino Styles says, I don't know in what world would an employee not be fired after missing basic key performance indicators year after year, let alone a CEO. As for Karl Robinson, I just don't see anything there. And what he would change or bring, need a clean slate top down. Every season we do clean slates, though. It's like every season that happens.
I think his point is we need a clean slate, not just in the playing group or the coaching, but the club needs a clean slate, which at this point, you obviously can't fire the whole club and just hire a new club. It's not that simple, but it's starting to look more and more tempting. At least anyone involved in footballing decisions, clean slate is looking pretty good at the moment. I'll say that much.
Robski says Boza as general manager. One can dream. WSW Animal, yes, it's rock bottom. As Bozza mentioned on Stan Sport FC, there needs to be an independent private inquiry in the club from the boards, coaching staff, and the players, youth academy, etc. Tatsumus Robinson and Peter.
Oh, this was my
Peter
favorite
Costello.
comment. So he's written Peter Costello, who's the former federal treasurer of Australia.
I know.
So I did comment just to clarify. Are you
Gavin.
blaming Peter Costello for this or Gavin Costello? So he did
Gavin
clarify
Costello.
it was Gavin.
Weed out the toxic and bring in new faces. And he continues to say, an interim, bring back Merrick as a caretaker, as he's worked well with the Jets players and does know the league. Once the season ends, promote Merrick to the director of football. It's an interesting comment there. It says for next season, start fresh. Could be plenty of managers available by then. Stajic, Arnie at Wanderers.
Arnie, that's yeah. Look, we know he'd do well, but I safely think that he'd swerve that one. I think that call he'd let go to voicemail.
I'd almost fancy Muscat over Arnie, to be honest with you, and that's a stretch. Matt Woods says this is rock bottom. In 14-15, we finished second last, but there was a fair reason at the time, and we knew Popper would turn it around. Now there is no excuses, no hope for change. Ex-players and coaches coming out talking about toxic culture is humiliating. The club needs to be independently reviewed, and anyone contributing this culture of failure and toxicity needs to go. Again, that's the whole thing. Independent reviews are going to change anything, though. They're actually going to. Who would do that, though? Someone who's away from everything. Someone who is a neutral needs to come in there and say, okay, we've identified 5 things here, and to rectify these 5 things, A, B, C needs to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's hard because we don't know who that person is or what. We don't have that level of insight, unfortunately. But there's got to be someone, right? There's got to be something. There's enough people who've been knocking around football for long enough to come in and actually do that, right? And clearly, people are happy to talk. We surely wouldn't be hard to get a hold of ex-players or ex-staff to speak to. So I think it has to be done because we've seen what happens when there's an internal review, which is nothing. They just dodge questions and they just don't tell us what happens. So it has to be external, doesn't it?
Yeah. I wouldn't buy an internal review. I don't want someone who's there like, oh yeah, the Wanderers are tops. Yeah. Meanwhile they're in the back there, shaking hands and having a laugh with JT and Letter. It's like, well, that's not going to work. Like that's not what an independent review is, man. Anyways, Sam says it's a combination of a previous season failure in one. I don't know what could fix this whole mess, but hiring a football director could help. To which I'll just piggyback Laura's comment here. Says just says we have the best midfield in the league. Again, being held accountable to that. Says we have some
accountability. I'm all for it when it comes to me. But the club before it as well.
Like we have we have one of the strongest squads. Can't say the football department has got it entirely wrong. Surely, I don't know if the players are decent, but they're just not working. That's the thing; they're just not working together. That is the main thing. Again, does that come through to the tactics in that case?
Yeah, it's a really good point because everyone's been praising our recruitment. And I saw someone else making this point too. It's like, if we're going to praise our recruitment, well, we can't go off of the football department completely. And I do agree with that. But it's kind of like over the last few years, there's been some years we've signed good players. We had Riera, he was a great player. We've had good players in there. Just even they're not playing well. And what does that come down to? Does that come down? So I think it's one of those ones where each individual year, like you said when we talked about the coaches before, every year we can make an excuse as to this is what the reason is, this is what that reason is. But when it's a pattern, I think that's when it gets worrying. So when it's, you have Gombau, he doesn't work out. When you have Babbel, he doesn't work out. When you have JP, he doesn't work out. When you have Karl come in, he doesn't work out. I think it's more about the pattern rather than the individual season for me. Because, yeah, I can go through in any one of those. Like, I'll ask you, Nick, actually, this is a slight tangent, but each of those coaches I've just named, each of those coaches we've had, at the time, do you think there was anything wrong with them as a hire? Were you looking at any of those coaches being like, wow, that's a bad hire and you can't have that coach come in?
Don't know, really. I mean, the only one, Gombau, we wanted it essentially, from the get-go. Didn't happen straight away. Babbel was one out of left field. I don't know. It's hard to say. But this is the thing, though. When you bring in a new manager, they're not going to be happy with what they've got within the squad. They're always going to want to put in their own 2 cents and, no, I want this player from here, and then we're going to play this way, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. Like when Popper brought in, what was his name? Carrasco or something, whatever the assistant was, Spanish assistant.
Carrasco,
yeah. And we brought in what's his name? Aguilar. We also had Dimas. We brought
Dimas,
in
Andreu.
Andreu. You know what I mean? We had, a bit of a Spanish influence, and you could see we were still playing a 4-2-3-1, but damn, we looked much better than what we normally would, again, with a Popper team from, 2 years ago. You know what I mean? So it goes to show that when you bring in someone who actually has something about them when it comes to style or direction, it does make a difference. You can still be the manager, but the coaching there, it's like, well, we're going to do this. Okay, how do we do this? Okay, we're going to shift this play here with that play there. Okay, well, let's do that, and we'll bring this play. You got to work with them together. Labby as an assistant to Robinson, I'm not slagging him. I don't know. Kenny Miller left. He went back overseas. Could that have been an issue? I don't know. Could he have done something different? I'm not too sure. It's weird to say. The whole Gombau thing, though, that was an experiment that failed massively. The Babbel one, that could have been better if he was afforded maybe another season, but it's a risk. It is almost a risk.
I guess my point is with asking that, right, is at the time, I think all of these hires we've made are fine, right? Because Gombau was proven at A-League level. We knew he was a good coach. He came in, he failed. We've gone, okay, let's get an experienced foreign coach in. Babbel is one things overseas in Germany, did really, really well. We get the experienced foreign coach in, he fails. Then we go, okay, we need the Australian. We need the local who knows the A-League. We get JP in, he fails. Then we go, okay, well, let's get Karl in, who has worked in the MLS, so he gets what it's like in a salary cap closed sort of league. He did well at Jets in the brief time he was there, so he should be able to do it. He fails too. So for me, it's like we've ticked every box. We've done every type of coach there is to get. We've got the Gombau, the Spanish football, the passing, whatever, Babbel, a bit more pragmatic, and Robinson as well. We got JP, the local. So it's, for me, it's like I'm not looking at those thinking, wow, JT is so bad at hiring coaches. Wow, Letter is so bad at hiring coaches. Because I think all of those were the best hire in the situation. And I think everyone was happy with all of those when they happened. So again, as we go back to the point, it's the pattern. It's like, if we're failing with every coach that comes in, with all the different squads that have come in, either it's just bad luck, which maybe is just bad luck. It's only been 4 years since Popper left. Maybe we just have gotten bad luck every year. But it suggests that pattern. It suggests that there is something behind the scenes that's not working out, because how can we fail so many times with we haven't made the finals since Popper left. How can you do that when the finals is the top half of the league? For the first couple of years after Popper left, there was 10 teams and 6 made the finals. Statistically, if you drew names out of a hat, there's no way you could ever miss out on the finals for 4 years in a row. That shows there is something wrong, because that you couldn't do that if you tried. If you tried to get Sydney FC to do that, they couldn't, even if they tried to lose games, let alone we've actually managed it. So yeah, I think we've gone away from the point of view. That's my bad. I'm angry, but it shows there's a pattern there, and it shows to me there is something probably going on behind the scenes.
Well, Matt, Bob, Brad, there is the comment there. As you mentioned, Josh, he did comment. It says, rock bottom. I follow Wanderers women as well as the men. Women have had virtually no success. Now men don't have either. Women need resources to build a stronger squad. Men have resources, but no football. Now JT must have some performance measures to justify dismissal. Again, it's the whole KPI situation there. Ekbal S. Runnison says, yes, get a local boy in, someone like Paul Ocon to stir things up. Another option would be getting a coach with a good track record like Ernie Merrick. Again, maybe not the worst idea if Ernie is up for it. Maybe just to solidify the squad. Who the hell knows? The Wanderers Post, WSW Post, who's in the live stream as well, says, probably our lowest point ever. Unfortunately, it hasn't been addressed and likely won't. Ex-players and coaches speaking out about management, and more to come out slowly. Some form of investigation, not internal, should be done. Is what we just discussed. Very good. Says, if what's been said is confirmed to be true, JT Costello and Robbo should be replaced carefully, and the director of football should be brought into this club. I think that was the conversation from last season. We need a director of football, someone to look after the players and who's coming in and who's coming out and what the situation is there, and let the coach the squad. Let JT be the CEO. Let Lederer be the owner, or whatever the hell Costello does, and all that sort of stuff there, because you can't put too much on one person. It's just too much for one person to look after. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what it is. And that's not saying the coach has no role in recruitment. They have a big, big, big role. The director of football is meant to be someone they work with, like who helps them achieve what they want. They find a common vision, but it's just someone else to kind of take that responsibility and look at it from a longer term perspective and kind of that step further back. I'll say it every week until we get one, but I agree 100% with that comment.
And Mac at West Sydney Football says, sack JT, Costello and Robinson, bring in Crittenden. Where are we, Crittenden, really? For the rest of the season, poach Pinata from the Glory and he'll come and start the rebuilding process. And someone's replied back, Crittenden, the club needs tactically competent coach. I don't know if that's really the case there. His record suggests competence to me. Yeah, like
I don't want anyone from NPL, and I'm sorry, this is just maybe a personal thing. Maybe this is probably unfair on someone like Crittenden, but it's a big jump from NPL to A-League, and I don't know the most about NPL. I'm not someone who follows it particularly closely, but I do know Crittenden's record is amazing. But it's to go from training a couple of nights a week and playing NPL kind of standard to A-League level, because it's not just about the coaching and the tactics as well. It's about managing the players you've got. It's about getting that recruitment, the networks, all of that, bringing foreign players in, working within a club, like all the responsibilities of a coach and working with, all of the assistants and the CEO and all of that. Is you need someone with A-League experience, I think. We can't be going to NPL to try and get us out of this. Like, that's not where change is going to come. You need someone who knows how to win and knows how to build a club. So with all the greatest of respect to Crittenden, I don't think it's the worst shout in terms of his ability as a coach from what we've seen and he's done over many years. But I think for me, we're not looking NPL at someone who doesn't have A-League experience. Even someone who's been an assistant at A-League level or so, or been involved in that setup for a number of years, maybe. But you need that experience there. Otherwise, we're just setting ourselves up to fail again.
Spiral Groove says, I don't like saying this, but sometimes a clean out of management is what's needed. Seen plenty in my days. Some outsiders with actual power to make changes and not just maintain status quo. We're ruthless with players and coaches. Why not club management? Clean outs happen regularly in the business world. It's exactly what's needed here, says Mike Francis in response, which is not a bad point. Obviously, if the business that is Western Sydney Wanderers isn't moving in the direction that it should be, and you're saying, well, management sucks, well, then you need to sack your manager and put up the new sign that says under new management. You know what I mean? And we're not talking about the squad. We're talking about the club overall. Now, I'm not saying that Lederer needs to go or JT or whoever, but if that is the avenue you're going to go down towards, ultimately, that is what's going to happen. And there is no way someone like JT or whoever is going to try give up their position without a fight any which way. So there's no chance they're going to just walk out and say, yeah, this isn't working for me or you guys, so I'm out. Like, that doesn't happen. And I don't think it's going to happen. A few more here. William Truss says, it's definitely rock bottom. Honestly, don't feel any enjoyment supporting the club knowing it's full of toxic culture. Would like to know that if JT, Gavin, Costello, and Robinson all got the sack tomorrow, what happens next? That's a very good question, actually. What does happen next if they all got sacked? You can't just sack a club without a CEO, surely.
No, I look, I don't have much insight into the business world, but I know that that's not like with football coaches. Like, football coaches are a real exception to how major hires at companies are definitely done. Like, the fact that they just sack them and then in a week they're finding a new one and perfect, done, whatever. I think what it would be is if they did decide they all need to go or whatever else, it would be probably someone stepping in, or like, it wouldn't be immediate for a start. Robinson, maybe, like, sack the coach, whatever. We're used to that in football. That happens all the time. But, Satsimus, there would probably be a longer transition period. Costello as well. They would need to, whoever's kind of making these decisions would need to make a plan of, okay, what is next? Is it a director of football? Find that person so it can be a sort of transition in and out. It wouldn't just be a, tomorrow Satsimus is gone. It'd be over the next few months, by the end of the season, they're identifying their, looking for targets. They're figuring out who can do the role. They're figuring out the structure they actually want. They're finding the right person and getting them in, and then making that sort of transition happen. So, look, what happens in the short term, hard to say, whether you keep Robinson at that point or you let him go or whatever. I think for me, Robinson's more disposable. The coach always is, because, like I said, we're just used to that in football. So if there's someone better comes along, maybe you get rid of him. Or if you're thinking maybe we need to wait for the new person in charge to make that decision and to kind of actually put some thought into it and do what they want with that, then maybe Robinson gets more time just to hold off, just to kind of manage the squad in the meantime. Until they're ready for that. So it's hard to say, but it would depend on Lederer. I'm running out of my business expertise here, so I can't really say. But it's an interesting question. It's genuinely really, really interesting if that were to happen, if change is needed, what they would do. I don't know.
And the last one here from Rob Vad says, 2 issues. 1, footballing. Karl obviously needs to go. This is a results-driven industry. And number 2, club. This is very tricky as there are allegiance, allegations, and you can't just fire people as would be unfair dismissal. A very thorough investigation needs to happen. and then go from here. In saying that, hashtag JT out, CR out, and GC out.
I would say Rob Vad did give
Vad,
us a warning of saying, "Are you sure you want me to say what I want to say?" And I think he's actually held back here. So credit Rob.
Yeah.
This wasn't as fiery as I thought it was going to be.
It's fair. It is definitely fair. There is nothing wrong in saying that. So, look, I think everyone's pretty much in agreement. Rather, that something does need to change in terms of the club if it is as bad as. And look, it's only 2 or 3 players, but if more things come to light, it could get really bad, and then you could see JT and Lederer start to drop a sweat. But if we're to believe what football.com.au reports, Lederer is saying, look, it's business as usual. Nothing's going to change. Go about your business. Don't worry about what these people are saying in and out of the media, and we'll just kick on and do whatever the hell it is that we do. It's gonna be interesting as hell. I mean, let's just go through some stats first up here. The WSW men's stats in the 4 years and a bit since Popper left in the league only. We've finished 7th, 8th, 9th, and 8th. 4 different managers, as we've already discussed: Gombau, Babbel, John Paul DiMarini, and Robinson. 164 goals scored, 190 conceded. From 111 games, we've won 33 and lost 47, average 1.17 points a game. The W League, we finished 6th to 8th every year, except on we finished 4th on the year we actually spent money. Who would have thought? 6 different coaches in 9 years with Catherine Cannuli in charge. Not going to break the points down over a longer period, but very clear the club has invested in the W League exactly only once. Do you want to run through the JT role there, sir? We've pretty much covered it already. Is there anything else we need to add?
No, I don't think so. If we want to, I think we've covered most of the stuff there. We've done feedback. Do we want to preview the Jets game because on Boxing Day?
We're playing Jets again. Joyous.
Yeah, because there was the Melbourne City game was meant to be tomorrow night. I think that's been postponed. So we do get a bit of a reprieve from Wanderers for at least Christmas. We can enjoy Christmas Day now without having to worry about being absolutely smashed by Melbourne City, because that's probably what would have happened.
That's true.
And then we got Jets in Newcastle on Boxing Day. So look, I'm planning to head up there at the moment. I think of all things going well, we never know at the moment what's going to happen, but that's the plan anyway. Should be a good trip up. It's a bit worrying, the football, considering what Jets are doing at the moment. Nick, how do you feel we're going to go?
All I can see is another loss. I don't see anything changing. We got lucky against Wellington, and even that was under contentious decisions based on Tomer Hemed handball, apparently, and an offside for them when they arguably should have scored in the first half. And then we score a breakaway goal, and Mac would have been cheering when he saw the keeper up in the penalty box. And lucky it wasn't our keeper, it was the opposition's, and Katrumbas manages to tap a ball in after Aquilina burst through. But I don't see us winning this game. We were lucky to draw this 2-2 last time we played. Jets were all over us. We were lucky to escape with anything of that match. They should have absolutely pumped us 5-0 in that first half. But now they're looking better. Arthur Pappas, he obviously come from Wanderers as well, with the youth squad, and went overseas, found an opportunity, came back. Coaching Newcastle Jets, they seem to be well drilled. They know what their roles are. They got good players there. There's a structure in place. Unlucky against MacArthur. Again, 2-1 loss after they went up. But attacking-wise, they really are exciting to watch. And when you see Yule, Mika Kludze, and some of the other players as well, when they turn it on, they can really get going. So it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know. All I can see is a loss. I don't know what score, but we are not winning this game.
It's a hard one. Oh, just to clarify, I don't think Pappas has been at Wanderers.
I thought he was a part of the youth setup.
No, I just did I double check. I didn't think so, and I've double checked it, and Wikipedia doesn't say he was at any point.
Thank you for that clarification.
All good. Yeah, it's hard to say anything. Like, it's even though they lost against MacArthur, and MacArthur only had 10 men. In theory, that's a positive sign. But Jets, when MacArthur had 11, Jets were all over them. And I think it was one of those funny ones where a team goes down to 10 men and the other side loses their head a little bit because they don't know whether to attack or defend or do what, and they got kind of picked apart. So I think Jets are they're the most exciting team in the league this season. They're the only team that looks willing to genuinely attack, and they've got the weapons to do it. Like, Aquilina's probably still having nightmares about Yule from the last time they played, and he's going to be absolutely fired up to kind of name again. Mikkel Tadzi's defenses don't know what to do with him. Daniel Pena is so good. The only thing that gets us a result, I think, is COVID. Jets were missing a few players because of COVID last week. They lost, I think Angus Thurgate was out. Jordan Elsey, I don't know if it was COVID, but was out. Their defense was pretty makeshift. So in theory, again, I'm going to say this like we said every week, we have the quality to get at them. We really do. There's no excuse for us not completely overwhelming their midfield and their back line. But based on our form, yeah, it's hard to see it, isn't it?
You also got to take into consideration who's going to play in this game. Are we going to see the same 11 as we did against the Mariners? I don't think so. You got to remember, we're still waiting on backers coming back to fitness to play in that midfield. Antonis, I know we were critical of him, but he's kept his place in the squad, maybe because there is no one else who can do what he does in that squad there, in that starting 11. Yugarkovic has been consistently just doing his thing. You could probably, Troisi could come in and out, but Petrados needs to be that number 10 if he is going to play on the pitch. Troisi, last 2 games, been doing well, been all over the place. He hasn't been anonymous. He's been trying to make things happen. We get that. My thing still is Abini. As much as I want to give the guy credit, just rest him for a game. Bring him on in the 70th minute. Let him 20 minutes. Let him run hard 20 minutes because that's probably where he's going to be more effective off the bench. You start with Agawa. You maybe put Najreen on the other wing, perhaps Hamed up front. Something's got to change, man. I just don't see us doing anything in this game if we're going to play the exact same way. All the possession, all the passing, nothing to show for it. And Newcastle will be up for it. They're playing at home in front of their fans. I don't know how the hell we can expect anything other than us just faulting again. If we win this, it'll be a miracle. It'll be a Christmas miracle. We'll be running out of the streets, like a wonderful life, hugging and kissing everybody. Thank you. And, how good is life and all that sort of stuff. But I don't think it's going to happen.
And well, I don't even know if I agree with that. I think it's one of those ones, even if we win, like we did against Wellington, it didn't feel like a win. It doesn't have that vibe at the moment, to be honest.
Actually, you got a point there. When we went 2-0, I'm like, that's interesting. Let me watch this replay. Watch the replay. The next day, I'm like, how do we win this game 2-0? It was like, I can understand why Ufuk Talay was disappointed and upset. But I think that'll wrap things up. We've gone over the hour mark and 5 or 10 minutes, whatever it is, with the intro. Who the hell knows? But that is it, Josh. Thank you for joining me. It's just the 2 of us. No Stephen, no Tats, no Turner. But Stephen will most likely be back next week. And for you guys watching as well, we do this every Tuesday, about 8 p.m., 8:15. We do it live. And of course, the audio will be uploaded to the usual avenues. So check out the audio version on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Pods, whatever the hell you listen to your podcasts on. It'll be there. ATBX 1006. What is wrong with this club, or whatever the hell the title was. So I think we'll leave it there. Thank you to everyone who watched. Thank you to all the comments, all the people engaging with us. Really do appreciate it. And again, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed. More ATB to come. Josh, thank you very much for joining me this evening, sir.
Thanks for having me. And yeah, and I want to exactly repeat what you've said. Thanks to all the comments, because it genuinely makes it really enjoyable to hear what everyone else thinks and get some really cool perspectives. So genuinely, yeah, fantastic to have everyone there, and Merry Christmas to everyone as well.
Mr. T, live watch along this week. Hey,
sorry,
I'm not going to Newcastle, so maybe. But there could be a watch along, yes. If Steven's not going as well, if whoever's not going, we can get us on board. Obviously, there will be a bit of a delay in terms of what's happening, but I think we can get the gist of it. We'll try and make something happen. And thank you to Daniel C. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Josh, have yourself a very good evening. Merry Christmas to everyone listening and watching as well. And let's just, pray for a Christmas miracle that the Wanderers get something against Newcastle, even though I highly doubt it. But thank you very much to everyone. Have yourselves the rest of a good week. Stay safe. Double demerits. All that stuff is happening this week. Don't drink and drive. You know the deal. See you later.